Howdy guys, Andy from Bigmeks Painting Studio, and today we've answering a request. The request was to paint a Night Lord by hand, and it just so happened I had a unpainted To Sevatar to paint, which, here you go, is just a superb model. So stacked up with detail that it's just absolutely stonking. What we normally do, obviously, is we primer thin with black. I'm also going to do a little bit of work on camera on the base as well, as it's a really interesting base. So, as we've got started, we're using a lot of Scale 75 paints. This is Deep Blue by Scale 75. I prefer to use it over Cantor Blue. It's a bit darker, a lot richer. It's much more like the Necron Abyss from way back, and it gives you a really nice base colour. Great for Night Lords. Real rich dark colour, just as you'd expect them to be. Now, as requested, this is all by hand, no airbrush work involved, apart from the prime. And now what I've done is I've mixed a touch of navy blue, and we're going to be doing this real gentle like. We're also positioning the shadows, so we're only painting like the inside, the outside edge from his right hand. In highlights, we're going to be leaving the inside of him and the his left hand side of things a lot darker. It's going to be a very sort of gradient style highlighting. So a touch more navy blue. As you can imagine, we're just sort of building the layers up. We're still working some of the darker areas with this, as it's still quite a dark colour. But we're slowly adding more and more navy blue. This is the third layer now, just adding navy blue, and as you can see, the highlights are still really subtle, which is what we're going for. I wanted a real nice transition sort of highlight, really making the most of the detail on the armour plates. So now I've got a base of navy blue for the highlight colour, and I've added a touch of Arianod blue now. And as you can see, we're just focusing on the highlight areas now. Any of the leading edges. Also, you'll notice that his greaves are not fully rounded. They've come to a kind of a point, and I'm really going to use that little hard line that goes down the centre of them to really accentuate the highlights, and this is just going to allow us to bring these highlights to a real fine straight point and make it look really interesting. Touch more Ariana blue now for a second layer, and as you can see, we're really starting to focus on the left hand edges. Anything what would be in a natural shadow is just left that little bit darker and getting highlighted a lot less. So as you can imagine, this is going to take a long time to get the colour right. This is now added from the mix of navy and Arianod. We've added some Mediterranean blue now, and as you can see, we're really starting to focus on those nice vibrant lines where the armour plate gets a that bit more straight. And we're also any of the edges we're really starting to focus on a little bit more. So we want these highlights to really sort of blend into each other, so you get a real nice gentle transition, sort of quite a natural shape to it. So it's even more Mediterranean blue, and as you can see, we're starting to bring some of the highlights around a little bit further back, following the armour plates, and that hard line is really starting to become quite pronounced, and you're going to get a really cool highlight to this, and it's going to make it look really interesting. So now I've added a touch of Fenris Grey into the mixture, and what this is going to do is just start to take away that blueness and give us a real nice highlight. And we're going to use some washers just to bring it all down together. So what we're not going to do is have a very vibrant colour, we want the colour to be really darken down. So using the Fenris grey, we're going to add the highlights in first, get those sharp points really interesting looking. Really start to focus on the points now more than anything else. And now we're going over it with a blue wash. You could use Drakenhof Nightshade for this. I used Army Paint's Blue Tone. And this is just to blend the colours together initially. As you can see, it's really thinned down, and I'm just getting it all over any of the armour. And now what I'm going to do is mix some of the blue wash with Nuln Oil, and this is going to be really mostly focused towards the darker areas, and this is just going to add that extra depth in the armour plates, get it all over. Don't be too afraid of getting it onto the highlight areas. It's quite easy to recover from because it's only a wash, and as I've said, this is probably about 50-50 wash to thinner, so yeah, I've got a lot of wiggle room, but it will take a little bit longer to dry than normal. So now I'm adding back a little bit more Fenrisian grey onto the previous mix, and we're just starting to focus really on the extreme highlights now. Get that armour plate look really sharp, but also it's going to, these nice bright sections are going to emphasise the depth in the darker regions. And now this is pretty much Fenrisian grey. As you can see, we're using the Winsor & Newton at this stage, getting nice fine gentle lines. And just be careful, take your time, and you can always go back with the darker colours to blend them in again if you do make mistakes and make the highlights a little bit too pronounced. It's really no problem. You can just come and go back and forth, back up and down with the colours. So now I've got the deep blue back out, and I've added a touch of black to it. And as you can see, I'm starting to paint in some real shades now. So where the extreme darkness is going to be, it's going to be extra dark, and we're really going to start getting that nice midnight colour, what you'd expect of the Night Lords. And we're using a touch of Wolf Grey from Vallejo from the Game Air range, and that's going to be the final highlights on the armour plates, just to make those final hot spots really pop out, and you get a real nice vibrant corner spot on any of the on any of the real sharp corners what are in the light areas. So now we're going on to the red. Any Night Lord player will tell you Sevatar should have red hands. He's been condemned to death by Kurz, so I'm a bit of a Night Lord fanatic, as you guys are fully aware. So the wings and all the traditional red sections, obviously red, and with him being Sevatar, he's getting red gauntlets as well. This is Scale 75's deep red, just to give it a nice base coat. It's not as dark as I'd like it to be. Really, as I've said before, I really do struggle with reds at times. So now I'm using Hastor Purple to go over the deep red, and it's going to it's slightly darker than the deep red. It's a bit more like it indicates, a bit more purple, and we're just using this to just add some more depth to it, as the deep red is not quite right, but the right colour, what I wanted. And now we've added some blood red into the mixture, and this is going to start being used to pick out a detail on the hands, on the wings, across the bottom of his blade. Start to emphasise the highlights. Again, painting in exactly the same style as we've done on the armour, on the rest of the armour. Really focusing on that right hand edge, making it look a bit more striking. So I've added some more blood red into this mixture, and we're going to start picking out the details a little bit more because it's a lot brighter now. And this is going to be a again focusing towards that right hand edge, towards where I've decided a natural light source is going to be. So what we're going for on his display base is going to be sort of pulling out of the shadows, so there's going to be a lot of contrast between the light and the dark. So now I'm going to add some Antares red to the mixture. Not quite sure what made me change brushes. Honestly, I can't quite say. But we're using the Antares red, which is quite orangey, but it's a real nice highlight for any of the red colours. Again, focusing more towards the light, and we're also going to start bringing the points out on the wings and on the hands as well. I've also at this stage started painting the eyes in the same reds. So now I've added some Mars orange to it. I'm going to start focusing on the edges now, as you can see, using the narrow brush again, and just start to feather out some of the highlights onto the onto the wings across his helmet, and obviously across his hands as well. So more Mars orange added to this mixture, and as you can see, I'm really starting to add the line highlights in, really making the effort to pick each individual finger and all the bone what stretches the skin on the wings, just to make it look that bit more interesting. And a nice edge highlight with the Mars orange straight, pretty much pure Mars orange at this point, and we're just gonna make those joins across the armor plates, but a bit more vibrant, a bit more colourful. As this is what we're going to be doing after is we're going to just bring it all down again with the nice dark wash, just to bring all the colours together. So this wash is red mixed with Nuln Oil, and is incredibly thin. It's going to be more focused on the darker section, but we're using it to just add a little bit more depth of colour to the lighter areas as well, make it look a lot more red, but we're putting more of the darker wash into the darker sections just to really add some depth of colour in there. So now for some real pointed highlights. This is Sol Yellow, going all over right into the extreme corners of the wings, of the hands, just to really make those I'm not even sure, I don't know what they're quite called, but really make the joints pop out a little bit more, because it's just going to make it look a little bit more polished. And I've done exactly the same sort of thing with the eyes as well, making them look a lot more interesting. So now what I've started doing is moving on to the bone and any of the Purity Steel tapes and Awesome Moment, and that's getting based in Iroko. You could use Zamizi Desert for this, worked perfectly well, or Ukshabti Bone. These are all good colours. As you can see, he's got a lot of bone type colours all over him. And now into the onto the metalworks, and this is Black Metal by Vallejo, and getting all over any of the silver works getting based in black metal. Using the black metal is a real nice deep colour, but you do get a real good coverage of it as well. And Warlock Bronze for any of the trim. Some people like their trim in silver for the Night Lords. I prefer mine with sort of a bronzy gold colour. It's all down to personal taste. Warlock Bronze, however, is a really good colour, and we do use it quite a lot on the channel for some of our trim work, and it's something I've used for a hell of a long time. So onto the base a little bit, and as you can see, I'm painting the curbstones well, it's more of a metal covering on the curbs, as with brass scorpion, just to get a nice base colour on there. I've gone around obviously on the base with the black metal as well, just to get a nice metallic base on that as well whilst we're at it. For the base concrete, I'm using Mechanicus Standard Grey. That's getting layered all over the concrete works and making it look very industrial, sort of much more. I'm going to make it quite dirty and gritty, make it look more worn, very 40k sort of Hive City-esque. So onto the red again, and I'm adding a red wash onto all of the reds, and this is just going to add some extra depth into the model, really bring the colours in, so those nice bright vibrant highlights just get toned down a bit and blended in with the rest of the colour, so it doesn't really stand out more than it should. And whilst we're waiting for the next bit for this bit to dry, we're going back all over the bone with everybody's friend Agrax Earthshade. As always, this is thinned down. I tend not to use washes straight from the pot. You can do it, and by all means go for that. But if you want a little bit more control, add a little bit of thinning medium in there, even as much as 50-50, and you do get a lot more control. You can just build up those layers really nicely, so you can get the exact colour you wish, what you're aiming for. And obviously the silver work can't be left unwashed, so that is getting done in Nuln Oil. As you can imagine, you can't go wrong with Nuln Oil all over the silver work. It just makes everything that bit better, and you can get a real nice effect using black metal with Nuln Oil over the top of it. And well, what good Night Lord would go to battle without wearing someone else's face? And I painted Sevatar with quite a lot of skin on him. The cloak, not necessarily meant to be skin, but I decided that's how I was going to interpret it. This is Cadian flesh. I'm also going to use some darker skin tones on some of the other flesh as well. This it makes it look a lot more interesting. This is brown leather that's going on some of the flesh that's not been painted. And it's got quite a lot of skin on it, so this is why I broke it up with the brown leather, just to add some extra texture into it. And it gave me a bit of practice painting darker skin tones, which I don't often do. So whilst once the brown leather is dried, this is Reekland flesh. It's going all over the skin work fairly liberally. As you can see, it's really thinned down. I had a pre-made pot of thin down wash just for this purpose, and it's just getting nicely laid down all over the skin. Get that nice depth of colour in where the recesses are. So onto the bone now, whilst I'm waiting for the flesh to dry. This is Far Brown, which is very much a cream colour, but it does make a good start point to work with for bone work, and it's going to give us a lot of wiggle room to take the bone up to a much more vibrant colour in the near future. So just going to tidy up the skin whilst we're waiting for the Far Brown to set. Again, going back down with Cadian flesh tone, just to get rid of any of the streaky sections where the wash has pulled a little bit more than I wanted it to. Also gets rid of some of the glossy texture, because I tend to use Reekland's gloss. And once that's gone down, we're going back to the bone and the tapes. This is with Mojave White. As you can see, I'm using a really thin brush, and I'm going to be focused towards the upper areas, making those nice vibrant lines all around the bone and that whatnot. Trying to keep the detail really showing through, because there's so much detail on this figure. It really does sort of encapsulate what a Night Lord should look like, and they are quite unpleasant soldiers to come up against. So I really wanted to emphasise the real horror of fighting these guys. So I really try to get the bone and the skin to look really good. So I'm using Agrax Earthshade again, but as you can see, I'm just painting it into the areas where it needs to go. There's not a full layer of a wash. It's very focused, really focusing in on the recesses to bring them colours together and add the extra depth what it needs. So as you can see, we're just adding a bit more of the Mojave White onto the model, just to bring out those highlights a little bit more before a final touch with the white goes on, just to really make those points stand out. Again, I'm keeping in mind where the light's coming from, as I wanted to really make it obvious what is trying to come out from the shadows. That's really what I was aiming for. So I'm just using the white on the most forward-leaning sections. So where the purity tapes ruffle up, facing inwards, just touching the tops of that with the white, and really just taking the time to get these sections exactly where I want them to be. What I'm doing now is I'm adding a touch of white right to the extreme areas. It's going to tone together all the most vibrant areas, and this is just a final highlight really before we get back into the metalwork, as the rest of the detail will be really brought to life by the oil wash. Now we're on to the trim, and we're going over the Wartlock Bronze with Runor Brass. Now, I do like this colour, it really does work well for this, but as I've said before, a common complaint I have is that it's quite thin, so you do need to add extra layers on where you normally wouldn't. Once the Sycorax Runelord Brass has gone down, I'm going over over it with Sycorax, using the just the tip of the larger brush, and this is just adding some extra highlight into it. So we're going to be really working the points on this, so we can really make those extreme areas quite vibrant using these colours. So next I've added some black metal into the Sycorax, and we're just starting to focus right on the leading edges now. As you can see, it's just brightening those areas up a little bit and making them look that bit more exposed to the light, and it's just going to start bringing those corners up just nicely. And once that's gone down, I'm using Thrash Metal for the top highlight on there, and that's just going to go right on the extreme points and really start to focus the colour. Once we've got the Thrash Metal down, we're going over all of the brass work with Agrax, and it's going to tie all the colours together, and you're going to get a real nice colourful set of trim there. with lots of depth because of the extra washes, what's just going to add together these darker colours. So onto the halberd, and his staff is got the staff on that is a base coat of black leather and bush chestnut. Felt like black leather would have been a bit too dark for the guy. For him, as obviously it's a very dark model, and all the leather work would have just sort of blended into the model. So I added the bush chestnut in to make it a little bit more red, a bit more life to it, so just to make it stand out that bit more. And now I'm going to add some orange leather into it, and this is just going to start adding a little bit of life to it, and keeping it away from the areas where his hands would be most of the time. So we're leaving the leaving the hafts fairly stained and what have you. And once I've got that layer down, I'm going to add some Rakoff flesh into it, and that's going to start just bringing those colours together, really making them come to life. As you can see, it's going to really start to make those leather colours look really nice together. I'm kind of feathering the edges, so leaving some of the darker colour through, showing through, but not in flat sections. It's kind of a loose paint job. So now it's getting some Agrax Earthshade on there, and that's just going to tie it all together. Get any of the it'll cover up any kind of any minor mistakes you've got, and also start picking up the depth of the model, adding the detail. I'm now going to add a little bit of Resurrection Flesh into the palette now, and this is going over the top of the Cadian. It's similar sort of colour and hue to Cadian, but it's slightly lighter, so it really does work well as a highlight for pale flesh. And what we're going to get is start building colours up really nicely. As you can see on the back, we're just going to start getting a nice, smooth, even highlight over that. Now, as I said before, you could have interpreted this as a cloak. I just thought it would look really nice in flesh colours, making it look like a really well-made cloak of some kind of flesh, I suppose, but really well cut. I'm now adding some Rakoff flesh into this, and what it's going to do is just start adding some nice soft highlights to the flesh tones. And this is just going to really bring those colours up, and we'll be using quite a lot of Rakoff for this section, as Rakoff's not quite a pinky white. It's got quite a little bit of yellow and a little bit of the yellow in there, so it also makes it look a bit more worn and old, as it's probably not been on its owner for quite some time. So Rakoff flesh is just going to start making it look a little bit more pasty rather than healthy flesh. So now I'm using Hellbound flesh into the mixture, and Hellbound flesh is a little bit on the green end of things. So as you can see, I'm just it's also very light. So I'm using it as a highlight, but I'm also really starting to emphasise the edges of any of the skin work. And this is again, like I say, it's going to be rotting. It's not necessarily going to be in particularly good shape after a few hours on it, strapped to a Space Marine. So I'm starting to add some flaws into it, maybe a little bit of bruising, and make it look like it's a little bit on the iffy side. So what I'm doing now is I'm using some really thin down blue wash, and also red wash and green wash at the same all together, and I found this bit quite difficult to record, so I'm just going to take you through the entire section in one area. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm using the different combinations of the three colours to add different effects to the model. As red and green sort of neutralise each other, I'm using the red and green to neutralise themselves, so I can add extra detail in there, extra depth from the with the reds, but also adding the green and the blue to make it look less healthy around the edges. And as you can see, it's starting to just really gently building those colours up with this very, very thin down wash. Now it's like a glaze level thickness, and I'm just using, as you can see, I'm using it with a really narrow brush. And what we're doing is really starting to add some interesting texture to it. Maybe a little bit of extra warmth in certain areas with the red, cooling it down in other areas with the blue, and also towards the extremities, adding some green in to make it look much less healthy. And it was a lot of fun painting the flesh this way. It was something I just thought about on the fly. I had a little bit of an experiment a few years back painting curs with this sort of method. So now I'm using Moonray Flesh, and this is going to be the upper highlight for the pale skins. As you can see, it's just going to finish off any of the highlighting what needs to go down. Any of the metalwork, what's still silver, also the floor in general is getting Nuln Oil, just nicely laid onto it. Trying to keep away from any of the areas what's not needing Nuln, but you know, it's not the end of the world with the Nuln Oil. You generally can make things a little bit better using it anyway. And obviously the Nuln Oil is going all over all the footwork. I'm focusing towards the back end of the model, so I'm adding a little bit of shade onto the base. The darker skin is a mixture of brown leather and orange leather, and as you can see, I'm just starting to highlight that into a sort of a slightly decaying brown skin. Not sure how I'd do this. I'm not totally happy with the colour, but it does come out okay, but it's definitely something I'll need to work on. So now I added a little bit of Moonray Flesh again. This is just going to be the final highlight on the darker skin. So back onto the silver work now, and I'm doing a base highlight all over silver with thrash metal. I'm just going to really brighten things up a little bit and add some nice colour to the blade. I'm also taking the opportunity just to add a little bit of extra polish to any of the bronze areas what I've already painted. So now I'm going to do a little bit of work on the base. So this is a light dry brush with Bigmeks standard. As you can see, it's already had some Nuln Oil washes and some Agrex Earthshade washes. I'm just gently dry brushing with an old knackered brush. We tend to just use nice soft ones, artist brushes, that sort of thing. We don't buy the harder GW style GW style dry brushes. Heavy metal is going back onto the metalwork again. This is a top highlight now. I'm just going to make those leading edges a little bit more vibrant, make the light look like it's reflecting. It turns out I did actually do an extra layer of highlighting on the metalwork, which is speed metal again by Scale 75, and as you can see, it's very, very light, quite a vibrant colour, and it just picks out those nice leading edges ever so brightly. Now, he's got some playing cards, tarot cards and such, quite a common motif in the Heresy era Night Lords. So I'm basing them in Screaming Skull, and I'm just going to highlight them up with a little bit of white as well, just to make them look like traditional playing cards. Now, you could go to the level of starting to draw some icons on there, but they are really small. So, there we have it, guys. That's Sevatar all painted up. Added some nice effects to the base, and obviously some blood effects around the cloak and all the blood, and on his weapons and that. And I think I've done a pretty decent job on it. Obviously, I didn't go to town on the dead salamander. Obviously, I felt that Sevatar should be the centerpiece, and the victim be more of an afterthought. But I did obviously put a bit of effort in there. Loads of weathering effects on the base and such, and yeah, I definitely learned a hell of a lot, and I really enjoy painting this guy, so it's definitely worth having a go at it. Anyway, as always, we've got some thank yous to make. So first of all, thank you guys to checking out this video and watching it all the way to this point. Also, massive thanks to our Patreons, specifically the Alt Boys, Matt, Ludwig Offpower, D-Wack, Mark, Dave, Tom, Spiky Dude, Warren, Ben, and White Metal Games. You're our top paying Patreons, and without you guys, we couldn't do this at all. So please check us out on Patreon. You get a load of benefits, but mainly you get early access to our videos as well. So huge thank you to you guys. Another way to help us out is by doing your online shopping through the Outpost or Element Games, where you get 15 to 20% off all your hobby needs, including any Games Workshop figures and paints and such. If you go through our affiliate link, which is in the description, we also get 5% store credit at no cost to you guys, so that's also a massive help. So as we get reduced price models at no cost to us or yourselves. Anyway guys, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.